Welcome back to the most unprofessional sports channel on YouTube. Welcome back to Swivel Chair Sports. I'm your host, Zach Circleberg Burkle, here with my co-host today, Aaron and Siege. Go ahead and say hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
All right, so in this video, we'll be talking about the most recent conference championship weekend in the college football realm, as well as a little look at the new college football playoff rankings that have been announced. Obviously, some controversy at the number 4 spot, but always, before we get started, please, if you enjoy our content, please make sure to like and subscribe. But other than that, let's go ahead and get into it. So, in this past weekend, we had the college conference football championship games across the nation, starting off on Friday with Oregon versus Washington and wrapping up Saturday night with, was it the Michigan game that ended last, or Florida State?
Florida State.
Florida State versus Louisville.
Well, they were on at the same time.
Yeah, Florida State versus Louisville, and Michigan and Iowa wrapped up around the same time on Saturday night. But obviously some big stuff came out of this past weekend. Florida State ended up winning, but did not make the college football playoffs. We'll be talking about that here in a little bit. But let's go ahead and start with that ACC championship game where Florida State lost their backup quarterback throughout the game. Ended up finishing with their third string. Still came out on top, beating a Louisville team that's...
He got knocked out of the Florida game.
Oh, was it the Florida game that he got knocked out of?
Well, he got hit in the head in the Florida game, left for a couple plays to go into concussion protocol, and then they let him back in, and he finished the game, which is only a couple plays.
Right.
And then after the game, like Sunday, Monday, he had concussion symptoms, so he didn't play.
Okay. So I knew he finished the Florida game, so I just assumed he had started this one because I didn't actually watch it. But, so yeah, they had to start the game with their third string quarterback then, ended up wrapping up a victory over Louisville, who's been struggling recently, just lost to a really bad Kentucky team a week before.
Whoa. Really bad? I'd say really bad.
Fairly bad Kentucky team a week before. They're not great. They're not great this year, Aaron. They don't have any Will Levis back there, let's be honest.
Oh, yeah. We know how much you love to suck his dick.
So what are your thoughts, Aaron, after Florida State knocked off Louisville? Obviously, they didn't look too impressive, but was due to a third-string quarterback kind of manning the ship. Did you think they showed enough weaknesses this past weekend to merit them missing the CFP?
I think so. I mean, their defense did look really good. Granted, Louisville is not necessarily the powerhouse that kind of everyone expected them to be coming in this game. Obviously, as you mentioned, that Kentucky loss and playing Miami, I think it was really close.
Something like that.
But yeah, I mean, Florida State's
I think you lost to Pitt too.
struggled. They've struggled like this second half of the season. They didn't look great against Florida State, or not Florida State, Florida. Even with their second string quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they just offensively, that was just a terrible game. It was terrible. And they're paired up. I don't know if you want to. Well, they're paired up against Georgia,
right?
Who's obviously not on the CFP, and I think they're just going to get absolutely obliterated, no matter who their quarterback is. So yeah, I think it's a good decision to leave them out. I don't think they really had a good shot at winning anything.
Yeah, I've got a feeling Georgia's going to kind of prove to everybody why they didn't deserve to make it in that Orange Bowl. But what do you think, Siege? Do you think FSU was struggling enough down the stretch of the season? Obviously, Aaron mentioned they didn't play great against that Florida team either, who they probably should have beat by a lot more than they did. It ended up being a really close game that they almost lost before, obviously having an ugly win against not amazing Louisville team, or at least underperforming Louisville team, I should say. Do you think FSU showed enough weaknesses to merit them missing the playoffs?
I think when we're talking about the ACC championship game, yes. The issue with what happened to Florida State is everything that could have went wrong in other games went wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, Alabama beat Georgia, which took a spot, and then since Texas beat Alabama earlier on in the season and won the Big 12 championship, they have to be in as well. So everything that could have gone wrong for Florida State went wrong for them in this situation. I feel like if you see Georgia roll in and beat Alabama in the SEC championship game, then they're in the 4th spot.
Oh, for sure.
And it kind of sucks when you're dealing with a committee selection instead of, I mean, just because they're limited to 4 teams this year. Luckily, this is the last year for it. When you're dealing with a committee selection, it's not win the games and you're in necessarily anymore. I mean, granted, if Jordan Travis is still healthy, I think this is a different conversation because he's a Heisman level quarterback, and so if he's healthy, then I think they're in, even if that last game it ends the same way. If Jordan Travis is healthy, I think you might see them in the playoff. The issue right now is if you're not a blue blood and you don't have a Heisman level quarterback manning the ship for your team, you're not making it into the playoffs. That's what the committee basically said. Like even last year with TCU, everybody said TCU wasn't deserving. They had a Heisman level quarterback at the helm. They make it in. They beat Michigan. They make it to the national championship game. Granted, they get blown out. With Florida State, without Jordan Travis, it's hard. But I think the committee made the correct decision given the circumstance to get the 2 best games possible, at least the 2 best semifinal games. So that's kind of where I'm with it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, obviously Florida State's a completely different team without Jordan Travis. It sucks. It's stupid. It shouldn't be true. But if Jordan Travis is healthy, FSU's probably in the 4 seed, regardless of whether Bama wins or not. That's truly the difference. It sucks, but if the CFP's committee's goal is to have the most competitive college football playoffs possible, I think they succeeded by putting Bama over them, because Bama versus Michigan is going to be a lot more competitive than FSU versus Michigan would have been, or FSU versus Washington if you think they would have jumped or went up to the 2 seed or 3 seed. So, yeah, it sucks, but I think inevitably they did make the right decision, and Georgia's going to kind of prove that when they more likely than not end up steamrolling FSU by 20 plus points. So I guess we'll go look at that SEC championship game, since it probably had the most implications out of any of them this past Saturday.
Other than Oregon-Washington.
Yeah, I guess that's true, other than Oregon-Washington, but that the status quo kind of remained in that game, so that's why I forgot about it, with Washington inevitably coming out on top. But with Bama, Georgia, obviously Alabama ended up upsetting the number 1 team in the nation. By doing so, they ended up jumping up 4 spots from the 8 to the 4, also knocking out Georgia in the process. Outside of that, Texas lost. Obviously, they've got a flawless record. And that Texas loss was so early in the season, you could argue that they're a completely different team now. But, on the other hand, they've needed a couple miracles to go their way here recently to make it this far against Auburn and, in a way, against Georgia as well. Maybe not miracles, but they definitely had some calls go their way. So, what do you think, Siege? I'll start with you first and then wrap up with our other SEC fan here. Do you think Alabama's gonna? Do you think they have a legitimate shot at beating Michigan, or do you think they're maybe not struggles recently, but tendency to play in close games down the stretch ends up biting them in the butt?
I think they have a legitimate chance. I mean, they just beat Georgia, and with the powerhouse that Georgia has been the past few years in college football, if you beat them, then you have a chance to beat anybody.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say they don't have a chance to beat Michigan. If anything, if they can figure out how to throw the ball and mix it up as opposed to just handing the ball off, I would say they're probably favored to beat Michigan, just because Michigan hasn't proved themselves when they get to the playoffs. They choke every single time.
Yeah,
So it's like,
that's true.
I mean, and also if they don't have the signs, Michigan isn't the same team, so you got to see how that plays out too.
Yeah.
Although,
Hey, Connor Stowns is sending those signs over to Drinkwitz, giving us Ohio State songs.
Yeah.
yeah.
Drinking is called Harbaugh.
Although, I mean, if Blake Corum plays the way that people expect him to, then I think Michigan will be able to like sustain drives and everything. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a really good game. I would say it's probably going to be the best game of the playoffs. That first semifinal game between Michigan and Georgia or Alabama. My bad. I'm used to saying Georgia.
Yeah. You did. I guess we'll talk about it later. But so, Aaron, I was actually going to bring up the whole Michigan situation. Do you think that? I mean, obviously they beat Ohio State since the whole story came out, so they're seemingly fine. Like that doesn't seem to be affecting them whatsoever. Beat Iowa in the Big Ten championship game, but that's kind of whatever. Before I ask you about SEC, do you think Michigan can? Or I guess we'll wait on that for a second. I don't know what I'm doing. For Bama, Georgia, Aaron, do you think that both teams should have made the CFP?
This is where it gets tricky. Because I think if you're looking at purely the 4 best teams, I don't think how you can say that Georgia's not one of the 4 best teams. I think you have to come at it with a little bit of a combination of the 4 best and most deserving. Alabama beat the number 1 team in the country, became the SEC champions. They kind of deserve to go in as well, you know.
Well, that, and you could also argue
They
they're
had
the top
a much higher strength of record than Georgia, and I think that's really kind of what bit Georgia in the ass.
Yeah.
And I mean, you were mentioning about Alabama playing some close games. Michigan played some close games late in the year. Played Maryland close, played Penn State semi-close. So it's not just Alabama here playing some tough games that necessarily shouldn't be. It's Michigan as well, so I think that'll be a really good game. I think Alabama has the best defense in the country, and it'll be exciting to see how they come up to stop Blake Corum.
So I guess that it's funny you bring up those close wins against Penn State and Maryland. Obviously came right before the Ohio State game. I believe the whole sign stealing situation. I believe those allegations came out around the Penn State week, if I'm not mistaken. It may have been after that, but I thought it was around that same time. Do you think that those whole allegations could have something to do with Michigan maybe starting to trip up here late in the season?
It's tough to say because you would think that they would already have their signs for this season.
Right.
I think it's more attributed to
maybe not even saying like not having the signs, more so like the morale in the locker room may be a little lower than it would have been had that story not came out.
No, I think they're tighter than ever in that locker room. I think it's more to do with Harbaugh wasn't there, so they weren't, using their full range of playbook, and their interim coach, just doing whatever he could to win the game and not being, super risky with throwing the ball.
That's true. J.J. McCarthy had been very, very, very conservative recently. Is Harbaugh due back for the playoffs? Okay, so the semifinals.
He was back for the.
Was he back for the
Big Ten championship game? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It was only the remainder of the regular season.
I'm sorry, folks. I didn't watch anything this past weekend other than Missouri. Missouri didn't play. That's why I didn't watch anything this past weekend. Siege, what do you think? What are your thoughts on Michigan heading into this college football playoff? Obviously, with Harbaugh back, they seem to be back to the peak of their powers, you could say. Was able to knock off.
Let's be honest. Iowa was not much of competition.
They got a good defense, okay?
They got a good defense, but their offense, like I don't know how you could do that.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Iowa held Michigan to 26 points, which is, I mean, pretty good. Granted, they scored 0, but
when your defense is out there like 4-5 a game, it's pretty hard to hold them to less than that. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's what I'm saying. Like 26 is pretty solid.
Yeah. I don't know. Michigan's tough though, because why are you laughing over there?
Michigan only had to have 213 yards of total offense.
For 26 points? Really? Holy crap. That's crazy.
Oh, man.
Iowa's defense is nice.
Cool, brother. That is pretty.
Well, they didn't move the ball. They started at like midfield the entire game.
How many yards of offense did you say?
213.
Okay, yeah, that's right. No, I got. No, yeah, okay, you're right. Sorry, my bad. Math's hard. Math's hard.
Yeah.
Well,
that is crazy.
Michigan can expect to have a little bit tougher matchup in the college football playoff against.
You could say that.
I mean, it's hard for me to get on Michigan's side with them playing Alabama in the first round. With that being said, I don't think they make it past Alabama. I think Alabama goes in there and beats them. And
just means more.
It just means more.
No, it doesn't mean more.
It just means more.
So.
Just means more.
I don't know. I don't believe in Michigan. That's my thoughts on that.
No, yeah, I think. I don't know. It's hard for me to believe in Michigan because they've blown it so many times in the past. And then Alabama just seems like they're going to be rolling after beating Georgia. First team to beat Georgia in the last 30 games. So that's a pretty big deal if you didn't know. So yeah, I don't know that Michigan's gonna be able to win that game, but I hope it's close. I think it should be. So I guess we'll go take a look at the Big 12 now, where the Texas Longhorns absolutely annihilated the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Go Pokes? No. What's that? What is that?
Isn't that the Horned Frog one?
Oh yeah.
Well, I can't show you, so.
Horny Toads.
Might as well have been the Horny Toads in there.
Yeah. Honestly, that was brutal. That was a ugly game to watch. Really wish Oklahoma State would have lost that last regular season game, so we would have seen Oklahoma versus Texas again. Would have been much more competitive, I'm sure. Siege, do you think Oklahoma would have been more? I mean, obviously it doesn't matter because it comes down to record in that case. What were your thoughts on the Big 12 championship game? Were you as disappointed as I was?
Well, considering I stopped watching halfway through the second quarter, I was pretty disappointed.
Yeah.
I was hoping that Ollie Gordon could have got something going. He started getting banged up, and OSU's defense is just absolutely god awful. So, but I mean, they got Arch Manning in the game at the end, so that was fun to see.
That is cool.
Quinn Ewers looked like he was supposed to his whole career.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he was hitting a stride there in that game, and hopefully that gets him going into the playoffs, so that way the Michigan and Texas game is pretty good between two really good quarterbacks. Washington.
Yeah.
My bad. It's weird because I'm not used to Washington being in there.
I know.
I'm not used to Texas being in there.
Nope.
It's not normal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Quinn Ewers showed what he was supposed to be his whole career in that game, and so that's exciting to see.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be playing your best football at this point in the season, so Longhorns seem to be doing that right now. But Aaron, what do you think of the Texas Longhorns' performance this past week? Do you think they showed that they're ready for the college football playoffs and maybe even ready to make a little bit of a run? Because I think they
If
could
they
beat
play-
Washington.
If they play like that, you know, play like the team that showed up against Oklahoma State, play like the team that showed up against Alabama, they can go toe to toe with anybody in the country. But the problem has been since Quinn Ewers, and even a little bit before, since Quinn Ewers' injury, no, had some slow halves, let some teams in games. So I think it's consistency is kind of like the question mark with them. I think this Washington matchup, that'll be a really interesting one. Supposed to be high-powered offenses, and it seems like Washington's sort of, finally hitting their defensive stride
Mm-hmm.
and getting things figured out there. So this should be a real fun matchup.
Yeah, look forward to seeing the big Phoenix energy. Which, while I'm talking about the big Phoenix energy, I thought we'd see some flaccidness this past weekend against a really good Oregon Ducks team. Unfortunately, he was as erect as ever, cause.
This guy, dude.
Oh, he was flinging that thing everywhere, wasn't he?
I'm crying.
Oh.
Oh, that's so funny.
Oh.
That's so fucking funny. Oh man.
Yeah, those Huskies really brought that red rocket out and waving right in Doug's faces.
He really just whipped it out and slapped it all on the table.
Oh, man.
Oh,
Most unprofessional show.
most unprofessional podcast. Oh my gosh. Okay. No, Michael Penix Jr. played an incredible game against the Oregon Ducks this past weekend, defeating Bo Nix and that fierce Duck squad. Really proved me wrong as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I had Oregon winning this game. I was convinced that they were college football playoff bound, but the Huskies just came out and proved otherwise. Like you said, Aaron, their defense was really solid. And then obviously Michael Penix Jr. on the offensive end was really leading them down the field consistently. And it just seemed like it was easy for Washington for most of the game. Is that kind of the vibe you got as you were watching it? Because that's actually one game I did kind of peek into.
I mean, they were dominant for 3/4 of that game. I think Oregon kind of got let back into it with a bad pass interference call late in that first half. That really extended a drive for them. It would have been like 3rd and 10. But they got pass interference call and automatic first down inside like the 10-yard line. So and then they obviously end up scoring then and the drive right after halftime. So that was a big boost. But I think Washington looked really good. They handled themselves. They battled back after losing the lead and iced the game.
Yeah. I mean, Siege, what do you think? Because Washington looked really good. Probably, to me, it's probably the best they've looked all
Best
year.
they've had all season.
Yeah. Best they've looked all year. Playing their best football at the right time, similar to Texas. I think we're in for a really good matchup between two really hot teams.
Yeah, I think Washington is one of those teams that kind of plays to the level of their opponent. Like they can keep games close against teams that shouldn't be close with them, and then once they're playing an Oregon or an Oregon State type team, they kind of turn it on a little bit, and you got to see that in the Pac-12 championship game. Um, the interesting, it's interesting because I feel like Washington and Texas, like it's almost just like a Big 12 matchup. Like Washington has, well, a Big 12 matchup besides the fact that Washington actually has a defense.
Yeah.
So,
But two
like
high-powered offenses.
Two high-powered offenses. I'm anxious to see what Texas does defensively to stop Washington. It's going to be weird. I mean, I can see Washington kind of going in there and not necessarily blowing Texas out, but winning by a good margin. As long as they're playing to the level that they're capable of, like they did against Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game.
Yeah, I think we're in for two really good college football playoff semifinals, which hopefully will culminate in a really, really good national championship game this year between two great teams. But now let's go ahead and look at what happened due to the results from this past weekend. Take a quick peek at the college football playoff rankings real quick. Obviously, we've talked kind of circles around it here recently, but bring those up real quick and then probably wrap it up. So, all right, as we've been kind of talking about this whole video, top four teams got Michigan, Washington, Texas, and Alabama, with Florida State, Georgia just missing the playoffs. And then Ohio State, Oregon, Missouri, and Penn State wrapping up the top 10. So, obviously, we got our college football playoff matchups here in Michigan versus Bama, Washington versus Texas, Orange Bowl with Georgia versus Florida State. There they are. Cotton Bowl with Ohio State versus Missouri. And what the heck is Oregon playing in? The Fiesta Bowl? And are they playing Penn State or Ole Miss?
Ole Miss is playing Penn State in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl.
So who's Oregon playing? Oklahoma?
Oregon's playing Liberty.
Oh, the G5. I forgot about that stupid G5. Yeah, because we almost got the G5 game, I think. So, yeah, got Oregon playing Liberty. And what I'm guessing is the Fiesta Bowl?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? Do you think I mean, we kind of talked about it already. You guys seem to think the committee got it right. I kind of agree. If anything, I might even have Georgia in there somehow, but I don't know who I would take out at that point because Washington did show me a lot this past week against Oregon.
The cheating Michigan Wolverines.
I guess, but they've been the best team all year.
Whoa!
Outside of
I would not say they've been the best team all year.
Most consistent. They've probably been the most consistent team all year. You don't think so?
No.
Liberty.
Yeah.
Liberty. I don't know. I mean, if you look at Minnesota's... Granted, they haven't really played anybody. So
Minnesota?
That could be Michigan. If you look at Michigan's schedule, I mean, they beat up.
It was a cakewalk to the last 3 weeks. And even then.
Yeah, it
Ohio
was.
State's really the only competition.
It was. That is true. You're not wrong there. One of the best teams in the country throughout the season. I think it'd be hard to take them out, especially when they are playing in the Big Ten. And they did beat Ohio State. And Iowa, for what that's worth. For what that's worth, honestly. Like, they did. And Penn State, for what that's worth. Like, those are two other ranked teams. Penn State being another top 10 team. I mean, that's worth something. So, no, I don't think Michigan would be the first team I'd take out. Up until this Oregon game, it probably would have been Washington. But like I said, they really impressed me this past weekend. So I think the committee got it right. But what do you think, Siege?
I agree. I mean, the one team that you could argue shouldn't be in there just because of the cheating violations is Michigan. Like, I honestly think the other three teams completely 100% deserve to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, Michigan deserves to be there with how they've been playing. Also, it's just weird when you get into like sign stealing and cheating and all
Yeah.
that stuff. Kind
I
of like, I mean, SMU back in the day.
yeah.
SMU got the death penalty back in the day, and I mean, so I don't know. It's weird. It's weird time to be Michigan supporter, I guess, but it sounds like nothing's going to come out of it. So there's just the Jim Harbaugh suspension for a few games.
And I'm gonna sound like a hater for saying this. I would have put Georgia in over Florida State if I did kick Michigan out. So, but
It just means more.
it just means more.
Well, it's not going to mean as much with OU joining, so.
Yeah, but Texas is there. They count. OU doesn't count, but Texas will. Just to piss the Texas fan or OU fans off. But unless, in case you guys have anything else, I think that'll do it for this episode of Most Unprofessional Sports Channel on YouTube, Swivel Chair Sports. I've been your host, Zach Circleberg Merkel, here with my co-host today, Aaron and Siege. Go ahead and say bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Later.
All right. That'll do it. Deuces.